for all of them that you've shared, for all of those that are just held into our hearts. We're grateful for this prayer for healing and wholeness, and certainly grateful for all of those who put my name down. It has been quite a few months, and I'm glad to be able to say that little by little, I'm getting better and better and stronger and stronger. I want to tell you a little bit about Chayei Sarah. Chayei Sarah is for our Torah reading, and in this section, it's interesting that the Torah portion's name, Chayei Sarah, is the life of Sarah, but the very first thing that we get to encounter is her death. She dies at the very, very beginning of this. And it says in the text, and still in Genesis, Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life came to 127 years. So good for her, 127 years. I don't think I won 127 years, but I think it was wonderful. And it says that she died in Kiryat Arba, which is now Hebron. We know that if you wanted to have a sense of this, Hebron is really where the cradle of Judaism is, and it is in the West Bank, in the land of Canaan. And then it says, we're only in the second verse, and then it says, Abraham proceeded to mourn for Sarah and to bewail her. And then it goes on about Abraham rose from beside his dead and spoke to the Hittites and basically says, I'm a stranger living among you, and I need to buy a burial place for my wife. That's the beginning of the text. And of course, there's many more things that come after this. And for so many people, there's two things that I noticed right away. For a lot of people who encounter this text and see Abraham's commitment to making sure there's going to be an appropriate burial place for Sarah, his wife, there's a lot of us who feel that in Jewish tradition, we have a real appreciation for caring for our loved ones who have died. There's a respect called kavod hamet, the respect and dignity we show to somebody who has died. There are certain traditions, and of course, the whole idea of having a place with a marker that's dedicated, that can't be trespassed, that's also something that shows this commitment to taking care of our dead. And we also know, as Jewish tradition unfolds, that there's a real strong commitment to having some room to grieve. And I think for us, as Americans in particular, but maybe not us in particular, we're not so good at it. In fact, I think most Americans, not just America's Jews, just Americans in general, really are pretty lousy at being open to actually feeling grief. And here's something interesting, even from the text. It says Abraham proceeded to mourn for his wife Sarah and to bewail her. Really, he was weeping. And then it says he got up right away and he kind of got to the job of taking care of her, which of course is admirable. But what about the sense of weeping? I want to show you something from the Torah, from our Torah. If you look on your screen, here is a little piece of Torah. And I'm going to move my picture. We see from the very beginning of this paragraph, Chayei Sarah, this is the life of Sarah. And if we go down from this new full paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, we're going to see in the middle of the word that really is about that he's crying for her, he's wailing for her, he is weeping for his wife. There's a cuff here that's a little bit smaller, right? I think you're able to see my cursor. Hopefully you are. And you can see a cuff that's smaller. Every Torah scroll has this cuff that's a little bit smaller. Bocheh is the verb for crying, and there's lots of different commentaries, and most of the commentaries I can't stand, but there's one idea that I think is really compelling and makes Abraham so human like us. And that is, he kind of held on to his grief. He wouldn't let it go. He actually made his grief smaller. He actually had a sense of holding back from being able to truly weep, perhaps the way he needed to. And the rabbis reflect this with this small little letter in the middle of the word about crying. Now, there's lots of other ways we can explain this as well. But for me, the idea of Abraham, our founder, this great patriarch, also has a hard time with real emotions, even at later part of his life. That seems very human to me. And still, our tradition says, in the middle, at the moment when you lose somebody, before a funeral, you don't even need to say the Shema. And then for some of us, we might say, big deal. But for someone who's really living a traditional, observant life, they say Shema a few times a day. But it's hard when we're feeling such grief to acknowledge God's presence. You don't have to say the Shema. I find that to be very sensitive. And then we have this intense week where we don't work, sitting Shiva, 7, where people come and bring us meals and we're able to gather together, even on Zoom, so that folks can say Kaddish. And then little by little, after 7 days, there's a 30-day period. After the 30-day period, there's a whole 11th month period. There's a process of kind of getting back into the world. And then even after the first year, we have all of these times for saying a Yizkor prayer. Yizkor at the end of our festivals, we know Yizkor because of Yom Kippur, but it's also at the end of Passover, it's at the end of Shavuot, and it's at the end of Sukkot. Why? Why do we have all of these times, including an anniversary of one's death? And I think our sages constructed a whole idea, a whole system of ways to give us permission to grieve, saying that it's okay, saying that we don't always have to toughen it up. In fact, the whole idea of pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, I don't think is so healthy for us in so many different ways. So I read something in preparation for the High Holy Days. It was written by a rabbi friend and colleague. She's in Houston. No, she's in Dallas, and her name, same thing. And her name is, sorry, Max, if you're on this Zoom thing, it's not the same thing. They're very different. I know that. But her name is Deborah Robbins, Rabbi Deborah Robbins. And she was sharing a teaching in response to Psalm 27. And the Psalm says, wait for Adonai, fill your waiting with hope in Adonai, let your heart be strong and of good courage, and wait hopefully for Adonai. And this is what she taught, relating to the idea of strength and the idea of grief. And I hope you listen. Strength is when I'm not defined only by a death, an accident, addictive behavior, a terrible mistake, a relationship that failed, a darkened dream. I was strong once, maybe twice. It was a long time ago, or maybe it was yesterday. Now I need to be strong. I want to be strong. I can be strong. I can teach my grief, my pain, my doubt, my guilt, my heartache, my defeat to smile. I'm going to say that part again. I can teach my grief, my pain, my doubt, my guilt, my heartache, my defeat to smile. Teaching grief to smile is a lifelong job because I learned differently at different stages of life. I was strong as child facing the death of my mother. I was strong when I became a mother without my mother. I was strong comforting a mother whose child died, a child whose mother died. I teach grief the same way I teach anything, with patience, vulnerability, creativity, in relationship. Good teaching transforms the teacher, the student, even the world. And each encounter is an opportunity to strengthen myself and others with others. I am strong when I'm not alone and always learning to teach my grief to smile. What I learned from Rabbi Deborah Robbins is grief doesn't go away, but it can come along with us. And little by little, when people surround us, really show up for us, not just send an email or a post on Facebook, but who really show up, that gives us a little bit extra strength to teach our grief and our heartache and our doubt to smile, because it can and it will. But we all have a job to do. Grieving, I think, is really important. But to stay in a place of darkness or depth or despair isn't what God wants and isn't what our tradition is trying to teach. I think we're trying to teach about being real and authentic about when we hurt. And when we see somebody hurting, if we were to show up, and I hope and pray we do, we can help accompany someone and help their grief to smile. And it takes a lifetime of practice. So I'm grateful for Abraham being human and for Sarah being loved. I'm grateful for Rabbi Robbins to teach us about vulnerability and growth and accompanying and learning. And what an image of teaching our grief and heartache to smile. I think we can learn to do that too. Friends, Aleinu L'Shabeach, the conclusion of our service 586.